Today on the grill, we're mixing dinner with dessert with some root beer marinated pork belly burnt ends. This is about to become your favorite recipe. Alright guys, let's get started. Here's what we got going on today. Pork belly burnt ends have become real famous over the last couple of years. There's tons and tons of barbecue restaurants that sell them. And arguably the people who deserve the credit for it are Matt Pittman and Travis Heim out of Fort Worth and Dallas respectively. Those guys are phenomenal cooks. They both are wonderful championship barbecue cooks on their own right. But what they have created and what is made popular in Texas right now is pork belly burnt ends. But we're taking a new twist on them today. We're doing some root beer pork belly burnt ends. And what that means is this: I took a whole pork belly and I sliced it up into long strips and then into cubes. So what we have left on that pork belly is 1-inch cubes, kind of like this. After I got the cubes, I put them in a big old steam pan and I marinated them overnight in root beer. Now I just drained them. And we're going to be hitting these things real heavy with some seasoning. We're going to be throwing them on the cooker. The mighty Hasty Bake Hastings behind me, getting some smoke into them. We're even throwing one more little fun thing into the mix. Instead of just marinating with root beer, we're smoking with root beer too. What does that mean? It means we're using some sassafras wood. We carry it at the Tulsa Grill Store. Some other people carry it around. You can order it online. It's a really strong, heavy wood. You don't want to use a lot of it, but sassafras root beer, it's right there with that same flavor profile, so we want to kind of hit these with that. We'll also throw some pecan wood into that lump coal. Once we're done getting these things smoked and seasoned up, we're going to douse them with some honey, some great barbecue sauce, a little bit more rub. They're going to be little pillowy bits of goodness that you're absolutely going to love. So let's get started. Now this is an entire pork belly. You don't have to use the whole pork belly. You can cut it in half. You can cure some of it for baking. You can smoke it whole and slice it and just have smoked pork belly. We did the whole one here because I know my crew is going to go crazy for these later on when we're all done. So I want to make sure we have enough for everybody. To start, we're just going to season extremely liberally with all this. So you want to hit all sides. Now there are some people who will smoke a pork belly whole seasoned and then they'll cube it up and toss it in sauce. And you can do that too, but like Matt Pittman, I like to cover these things all the way with seasonings on all 4 sides, get as much flavor as I possibly can in them. Today we're using Plowboy's Barbecue Yardbird rub. It's a great, wonderful rub full of color, full of sugar, full of seasoning. Other options are great too. Meat Church Gospel or Holy Gospel is a good option. Honey Hog is a good option. Butcher Barbecue Honey Rub is a great one. There's so many good ones, but what we're going for is kind of a traditional barbecue profile, which is what Yardbird and Meat Church and those ones really fit the bill for. You want to hit every single piece that's in this pan on all 4 sides. It might take a little while, but trust me, it'll pay off. So don't skip any pieces and just get every single one of them. Now once you get the majority of these hit, what I'm going to start doing is stacking them on a cooking rack. Now these are called cooking racks or cooling racks. You can get them online on Amazon. You can get them at your local restaurant supply store. They're a great way to move a lot of small pieces of meat in one fell swoop. So I got most sides, but just kind of build them up. Now I like to, if possible, go skin side up on these. I think it crisps up a little bit more and gives some really beautiful color. You're probably going to go through about a whole bottle of rub doing an entire pork belly. So just kind of be aware of that. Make sure you got enough to start off with. You want to leave enough room in between all the pieces that you're seasoning so that they can get smoke. Now this pork belly did not have skin on it, so it was removed by the butcher ahead of time, but there was a layer of fat. So I scored the top of it, kind of cross-hatched it, to be able to get that skin to kind of render, that fat that's underneath that skin to render out and bubble out as we cook. That'll be a little bit quicker process. All right, what we have here is a mountain of pork belly and it's fixing to go on this grill. We're shooting for 275 today. We're gonna get it in there about half an hour, make sure all the moisture is doing what we want it to do. We can spritz it down with something if we need to. Gonna probably roll around 2.5 hours or so today. We'll pull them out, we'll take a look at them. We wanna temp them and make sure they're nice and tender. Then we'll toss them in sauce and get them back on there to soak a little bit more and tacky up. And it's just gonna be the most amazing bite ever. So on to the Hastings at 275. Something to note as well is as these are in there smoking, we do have our firebox in the smoke position right now. If you want to put a heat shield over it, you can to get that smoke circulating. The Hastings is big enough I can offset everything and get the smoke to kind of go over it, but we are in the bake position. We don't want a lot of hot fire on those pork bellies. We don't want to cook the meat before we render the fat. We want to give it a nice long time for all that fat to render and for those little pillows of goodness to break down and tenderize. 2.5 hours. That's how long we had to wait to get these beautiful little perfect squares of goodness. All browned up, all crisped up, got the rub set, got the fat rendered. They look absolutely killer. You could totally eat them just like this. As a matter of fact, I tried one and it was killer. But we're gonna make these things just a little bit more over the top. We're gonna hit them with some awesome barbecue sauce, some honey. We're gonna toss them back in the cooker, let all that sit and soak into them. We just want an absolute explosion of flavor when it hits your mouth. So that's what we're gonna be shooting for. So to do that real easy, we're just gonna take these racks, hey, little hangers, got them. We're gonna throw them right into this pan, knock them all back down. A couple more. Now when we pulled these, they were in there for about 2.5 hours, cooking around 275. We cranked the temp up to about 300 in the last half hour just to kind of get them moving. But we pulled these, the internal temperature on them was around 200 degrees. You really want to get them to the point where they're almost completely done, because once we put the sauce in there, we don't want to leave it long enough that the sauce is going to start to char or burn or anything like that. We just want it to soak into the meat and kind of sit and get tacky without completely cooking the meat. So you want the meat to be mostly done by the time it's all said and done. So the last thing we're going to do with these is take some barbecue sauce. Now, truthfully, I couldn't decide what we wanted to use today. Cosmos barbecue sauce, sweet smoke, is absolutely killer. Heath Ryle sweet barbecue sauce is absolutely killer. So we're just going to go ahead and use a combination of both of them. You need quite a bit of sauce for this anyway. So shake these up, get a good amount of smoke from the Cosmos sauce. Now you want these to be covered enough that they look like you dipped them in sauce, but not pooled up or floating in sauce or anything like that, because realistically, you're not trying to boil them in sauce. Here's that Heath Ryle sauce. There you go. And then we're just going to go ahead and hit it with some honey on the top end. We're using Cheatwood's pure raw honey. It's a local Oklahoma honey. Always encourage you to use local honey. Not only is it healthier for you, but it's good for the local honey economy. You got to keep those honeybees working. So that's what we're using right here. Now to get real messy, get those hands in there. These look killer as is. I just want to dive into them, but give them another probably 30 minutes or so on the smoke to let all that barbecue sauce and that honey sit, and it's going to be best barbecue dessert you've ever had in your life. That's about all it takes on these root beer pork belly burn ends, or as we call them, root beer bacon burn ends. My goodness, these look good. Perfect in color, dark red mahogany, glazed wonderfully with that honey and that barbecue sauce. I guarantee it's got a good amount of smoke in it. I cannot wait to tear into these. More importantly, my crew can't wait to tear into these. So this is going to be absolutely phenomenal. Look at this right here. Pillowy, squishy goodness. Perfect amount of sauce. There's root beer in there. It's just crazy that it came through on that long smoke. That root beer really stuck with it. There's a sweetness there that's killer. A little bit of saltiness just from the pork itself. Like a little bit of char on the bark. It's just, every bit of that is perfect. It's more of a dessert than it really even is a meal, but you got to make these. You got to try it. I know it's a little bit of work, but man alive, is it worth it. Continue to join us every week as we do these kind of things. These are so fun. We love doing them. Hit that subscribe button. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Interact with us. We'd love to know what recipes you guys want to see. In the meantime, I'm going to pound like 5 pounds of these right now, so I'm going to get out of here. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you soon.